He quoted like Sean Strickland to me in this cafe, and I was like, looking at this kid like, fuck's sake, man, you're like skinny as hell. Like he was all malnourished. Yeah, at the end of the day, you can't get too attached to a specific outcome. You're connected to what you're doing in terms of the work and the athlete, but you can't be in your head attached to them winning, you know, because then when that doesn't happen, it's very, what's the word, like depressing. You know?
After months of delays, technical difficulties, missed footage, I'll finally finish the Steve Pipe interview. Some of the things we talked about just happened when we talked about it, and some other things have happened since. Steve, if you've seen this, I'm sorry, this one won't take so long. On to the interview. Today I'm squaring up with Steve Pipe, strength and conditioning coach of MMA athletes such as Shane Young and new MMA athlete Nikora Lee Kingi, who is also King of the Ring champion, and Steve does a bit of commentating for Combat Sports Network as well. How you going, Steve?
Going well, thanks, bro. Nice to be doing this with you, man.
Yeah, nice to finally
yeah, it's been a long time coming here, man.
I like to start off with this game that I call In the Pocket.
Okay.
Because you're a Muay Thai guy, we'll call it In the Clinch.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
So it's quick fire questions.
Yep.
And you just say first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
And it may get a bit random.
Okay. Okay. No worries.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep. I'm ready. Yep.
All right. Who's your favorite fighter?
Right now, or of all time?
It can be either.
Either. I'm going to go with two.
All right.
So right now my favorite fighter is Nikora Lee Kingi. Of all time, my favorite fighter would be Senchai.
And would you rather be knocked out or submitted?
That's a tough one, man. It really is. I'm gonna say submitted.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
My favorite dinosaur, Velociraptor.
Would you rather do you go sock shoe or sock shoe?
You're gonna have to explain this question to me
How
a
do you
little
put
bit.
your shoes and socks?
How do I put my shoes in?
Yeah.
Sock, shoe.
Would you rather wear the same pair of underpants for 2 weeks or the same pair of socks for 4 weeks?
Socks.
And what is something you're really bad at?
Really bad at. Probably if I'm being brutally honest, something I'm bad at that I really want to get better at is fucking riding scooters, man.
Just the push scooters?
Nah, like the little like moped like scooter things.
I've got a story about this later. And what is something you're proud of but never get to brag about?
Proud of but never get to brag about. I'll probably say my wife. Yeah, but I don't really ever brag about her too much. But
Give her a message right now.
I'm proud of you, babe. Yeah.
So you've just gone back from Brisbane.
Yep.
You're over there for one of your favourite fighters. Nikora Lee Kingi.
Yeah.
Beatdown, right?
Yeah, Beatdown Promotions.
It's a relatively big one over there, right?
Yeah.
They do one here sometimes, or is that XFC I'm thinking of?
XFC, I think, bro. Yeah. I don't think Beatdown's ever been to New Zealand yet.
Right.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was a good experience, you know. Like I enjoyed being there, and I thought the production quality of the show was really, really good. If anyone wants to check it out, they can. There's like a post of the live stream on the YouTube channel. So at the moment, they're just like this emerging promotion. They're trying to like grow their brand, grow their name and everything. So yeah, it was cool. So there was a total of 4 Kiwis that fought on the card. One of them won, Nate Law, who used to train out of CKB. I think he's actually moved to the Gold Coast now. But yeah, he won. And then 3 Kiwi fighters, unfortunately, didn't come away with the win. Janae Harding, she was in the final. She fought a just insanely, brutally tough, vicious Australian girl that just constantly ran her down and just really like took her into deep waters. So that was tough, man. And then there was a heavyweight fight. So the Kiwi girl, she was 100 kilos, and the Aussie girl was, I think, 126 kgs.
Is that what they weighed in at?
Yeah, there was a heavyweight fight, heavyweight fight. But this Australian girl, she was just a giant Samoan woman. She was massive, and she had the reach advantage. She was just wider, bigger, and she just feinted like subtly really well. But then she would kind of like throw an overhand, not necessarily miss the overhand, but then she would just pop this really nice jab on the end, and that just disrupted any counter that the Kiwi girl could get off. you know. So yeah, that was tough, man. But it was a good fight. It like went the full 3 rounds, except for Nikora's fight, which we'll get into now. So Nikora, my guy, okay, his game plan was to be patient and to like stay on the outside and kind of like, you know, stump the takedowns and work the striking, right? So that's what I kind of talked with Dan Hooker about. And then, yeah, but what happened was Nikora's not that kind of fighter. So in kickboxing, he's like a relentless forward pressure style fighter. He'll just be in your face the entire time and he'll just murder you with volume and power strikes and pressure. And he's got like this phenomenal gas tank where like people will think, oh, that's a stalemate, they're both fatiguing. And then he'll just go gear 4, gear 5, and then just annihilate them with just that sheer volume and pressure and his ability to sustain like quite a high level of power too. So because of that, talking with Dan after the fight and stuff, he's just got too many reps in that kind of like mid-range stand and bang kind of thing. But yeah, like because of that, I think that's why he's gravitated more to like wrestling. So the guy that he faced was a really good, strong wrestler. He was like a little nugget of muscle. And you could tell from the very beginning that guy's game plan was to take him down and to try to submit him, right? What actually ended up happening was there was several times when Nikora actually grabbed him and just ragdolled him down to the ground and was just wailing on him and just smashing him, man. Like all round, like Nikora basically won the entire round. He was stumping the takedown, he was kneeing him in the body, he was just out striking him. It was just an awesome fight, bro. And then even the commentators were saying, for someone that's supposed to be a striker, he's really like dominating in the grappling, you know? So yeah, but then there was one point where I can't remember exactly what happened, but the guy got him against the cage, took him down, and then I think you hear Dan in the commentary, he's not commentary, but you can hear him, he says, pummel, pummel, pummel. You know what pummeling is. So yeah, he tried, and then the second he kind of hesitated, then we went for it, that guy seized that opportunity, because he's like, oh, he's thinking about the pummel. As his hand's coming through, he just went, whoop,
And he just telegraphed it. And
took him down, bro. Yeah, and then he passed the guard. Nikora like kind of panicked a little bit, flipped over, and the second he rolled over, this guy goes, swoop, and just put him in a rear naked choke. Yeah, and then he tapped out.
because that was his very first MMA fight, right?
First MMA fight.
And is he going to stick with it?
Yeah, hell yeah, bro.
Yeah.
His screen, he's cool, you know, like he's not like a normal fighter where like he doesn't put like excessive amounts of pressure on himself. So his home screen is this photo that he found on his opponent Shane's page, where one of his friends posted it, and he goes, and it was like him getting submitted. It was like a zoomed in close up shot of him like tapping, and he's got that as like his homepage on his phone. Yeah, he's just like, look what I found on Shane's page, and like,
is this something that you train into your fighters? Because Shane Young did something similar.
Yeah, Shane's a bit like that
when he got submitted to the other UFC 293.
It's not something that I train into them, bro. No, I think like it's nice to see them like making fun of it and stuff, you know. But yeah, Nikora's like another level, you know. But I think the thing I know with him is that he'll see that daily, and he'll use that as like this deep burning fire to like get better. Because he's only really been training full-time MMA for 2 months. So obviously he's done Kai's camps, but normally when he does Kai's camps, he's just doing the MMA sparring, and most of the time they will tell Kai not to go to the ground with him because Kai wants to utilize him from the striking perspective, right? Because he's obviously like 3-time King of the Ring champion. So that's what they're trying to get out of that camp when they work with Nikora. So this is the first time that he was actually doing wrestling classes and like actually integrating the takedowns in, and the fighters that he was training with were actually going for the takedown more frequently, right? So it's the first time he said to me, I actually feel like an MMA fighter, you know? And he sent me footage of him sparring, and there was multiple times when he'd be kind of throwing shots and he'd just boom and just slam people down, you know? So I think he's going to start to make himself a bit more of that like grindy style, like wrestler that's just in your face and just constantly just smashing you in the face, kind of like a Khabib, you know? Yeah, but then he has that ability to still kind of fight on that like external range as well. Yeah.
And do you think, is he going to mainly focus on MMA now, or is he still going to compete when King of the Ring comes up?
Nah, man. He's like talking with him. He's fully moved on from King of the Ring. He's like in like kickboxing and all that. He knows that like MMA for him is like the next kind of like progression for him in his fight career. So yeah, he's just like fully moving into that. But it was so funny, man. He's like, I think he quoted like Sean Strickland to me in this cafe. And he's like, because we were talking about the fight and how he just kind of got excited and just like went for the fucking like grapple and slammed the dude down and stuff. And he's like, you know, sometimes you get into the fight and your dick just gets hard and you just go dick to dick with the other guy. And I was cracking up at that, man. And his girlfriend just like, let's not quote Sean Strickland like that to me like this. But like, that's pretty much exactly what happened. He just went in there and he was just like, let's fucking go. And just, you know, just like went head to head with this dude, bro. So yeah, I just thought that was quite funny.
Because afterwards you posted this and I screenshot it because I wanted to ask you some questions about it. It says, one thing I've learned to embrace over the years is the volatility and unpredictability of the fight game. As a strength and conditioning coach, understanding what you can and can't control is an imperative to your growth. The fight game is wild. Just do your best for everyone that crosses paths with you and the universe or whatever you believe in. We'll do the rest for you. Attached to nothing, connected to everything. So you've kind of been there with Nikora in his highs and now he's at a low. I was going to say his lowest. And he probably takes it on the chin. But for you training with them, spending a lot of time, I imagine as you train these people, they're not just people you train, they become your friends.
Bro.
So what's it like for you being there, especially because you can't help them in the ring and in the cage, whatever they're doing. So how do you find it when they have these highs and how do they when they have these lows?
Yeah, this is a great question, man. So this is something that I kind of like, as you can kind of tell from that, like it's something that I've had to contend with over the years. There's been like numerous times that I've been working with like really high level guys, and everything in our world that we've been doing on the strength and conditioning front has been like immaculate. Their numbers are great. Everything they're doing with me is just phenomenally good. Like we've gone from where we started to like this unheard of level before with this athlete, and everything's just so amazing. But then on the skill side of things, they're like maybe 2 or 3 weeks out from a big tournament. They've barely got any pad work. They've just they're barely able to like do like proper training. They've had very little guidance, like all these sort of things, right? And so it would like stress me the hell out, you know. I'll be like, fuck, you know, but then I kind of had to make my peace with it and be like, well, that's not on you. Your job is to work as an S&C coach. You're not their skills coach. So that's where like their team has to step up. And so, I guess for me, it's been this big battle, bro, internally, because I fucking care, you know, like I want to see my guys do really well. But then when they're not getting that support that they need from on the skill side of things, that's hard to sit back and just like witness as well, you know. And then obviously when they go and fight and stuff and they, you know, maybe don't perform as good as what you know they're capable of doing, that's also like a hard pill to swallow too. But at the end of the day, you can't get too attached to a specific outcome. You know, you're connected to what you're doing in terms of the work and the athlete, but you can't be in your head attached to them winning, you know, because then when that doesn't happen, it's very like, what's the word, like depressing, you know, like you're like, fuck, like I put so much into this person and then this they didn't get the result that we wanted, you know. But you just can't let that get you down, man. You just have to like keep pushing forward and like I said, just understand that's just part of the game. There's a lot of volatility there. As long as you do your absolute best for that person, then like the rest is just kind of like up to them and like everything else.
And when they do suffer these losses, how do you kind of support them as a coach and as a friend?
That's a good question too, bro. So this is something, you know, I've worked with a lot of high level S&C coaches. Like we've collaborated, we've done different things together. So I have like this network of coaches that I've, you know, been like lucky enough to be able to network with and learn from, and vice versa. Like they learn a lot of stuff from me too. And you know, I've just seen how this recurring theme where when the athletes don't perform at the level that they wanted them to, or don't succeed or suffer a big loss, there's this kind of like still this like ride or die mentality. So it's like, I just tell my athletes, look, no matter what happened, man, I'm always here for you. You know that this changes nothing. I still want to see you hit your highest high, and I'm here for you whenever you're ready to continue training, you know? Yeah. So that's it really, bro. Yeah.
Because Shane's obviously on a bit of a losing streak at the moment as well. So
it's not looking good for him.
No.
You know?
The Auckland card's potentially coming up. I think they might keep him around for that. But I mean, with those repeated sort of performances, is it the same kind of thing? Or does each time, when losses start stacking up, is it you have to change the tact with how you're approaching the fighter? Yeah.
So I mean, like that was that. I guess that's like another painful thing, right? Because we did change up our tact a lot, and like everything was good, but then there's still, you know, other factors. I think probably one of like the biggest challenges for CKB on that particular instance was that they had 6 fighters on the card, right? And, you know, just to have 6 fighters fighting on one night, mentally, emotionally, physically, that's just a shit ton of work, you know, like it's a lot of work for Eugene to have to contend with, you know. And, you know, when it is in Australia, it can make it a little bit harder for coaches to get over there and stuff like that. So, you know, I think if it's a local card, it's more feasible because they have this giant support network of people that are able to be like hands-on there, helping out, supporting all the needs of each individual fighter. But when you do travel abroad and you're like under, like maybe you don't have as much staff as what you'd like to have, things can be a little bit more tricky and complicated, you know. And it's hard to like, even if you have all the staff, it's still quite difficult as well to like individually cater to the mental, emotional, and physical needs of each athlete that they need in order for them to be able to perform, you know. So yeah, I think those factors kind of like fall into it as well, bro. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Shane, you know. In my mind, I almost feel like because the way that he got into the UFC obviously was he took the fight last minute with Volkanovski, and he had this like toe-to-toe epic fight with Volkanovski, and that was like a great fight for him. And then, you know, since then he's kind of lots of personal issues and stuff. He's kind of been like up and down with his career. But yeah, I feel like he's got the potential to get there, to get back to the top at least, and, you know, be like a solid contender in the UFC. But it would almost be better for him mentally to like maybe not compete on the UFC, you know, because he might need to like rebuild his like mana, you know, and fight some other fighters that maybe aren't like the UFC world elite level status, you know, like the last guy he fought before this guy, Golden Gloves, like I think he was like a 3-time Golden Gloves boxing champion.
Oh, Blake Builder?
Yeah. Boxing, like kickboxing, like American champion, black belt in BJJ, you know, undefeated like amateur and then turned pro, undefeated fucking pro, you know. That's like a fucking hell of a fight to take on, you know. And then like the next guy after that, this last dude, right? I think he had like 15 submission wins or something, or like 14.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I was taking so much information when I was there.
It was like 15 fights and like 14 submissions in his pro career. So, you know, he's like elite level submission artist. And this is the thing, like in UFC, you really need to have some type of elite level edge that you have over your competition, right? You can't just kind of like have like a decent baseline. You need to have something that's like very clearly your strength, you know. We look at Conor McGregor, elite level like left hand, you know, he's just such a sniper with that, you know. We look at like Khabib, he's just such an immensely powerful grappler. Every fighter you see at the top, there's something about them that they have. Dustin Poirier, amazing chin, insane levels of durability, and his conditioning is like second to none, you know. His gas tank is just elite level. Like I used to be mentored by his old S&C coach, Phil Daru, and Phil Daru would tell me that Dustin Poirier, his ability, his recoverability is just so much higher than everyone else's. It's just insane, you know.
I've heard someone say it's like however Dustin Poirier rehydrates. I don't know how he does it, but I need to learn how to do that.
Yeah. So, you know, like things like that, bro, like you have to have like some type of X factor, and that X factor needs to be something that's like very potent at that level. So I don't know, that's just like my own thoughts, you know, like, but at the end of the day, like if he does get another shot, that'll be fucking awesome. I'll be super happy for that. But yeah, it's just tough, bro, you know, especially if you're not like mentally in the right place too. Like I think you need to have these kind of like this ability to fight at a level which allows you to kind of like rebuild yourself a little bit, you know, especially if it's a case like this where you're just coming in and you're just like getting submitted so quickly, you know, or like if you're fighting against someone that's just like just very super insanely technical and just moving the whole time, you never really get that chance to like work and like hone specific things. So yeah, I don't know. That's just like my 2 cents on that.
That's a full dollar, mate.
Yeah, sorry,
no, that's good. So we touched on the lows.
Yeah.
So with on the highs, we use Nikora Lee Kingi as an example again.
Yeah.
So back to back, 3 times. It was 3 times in a row, right?
King in the ring.
That's like there's only one other person to do it.
Yeah.
And he unfortunately is not the middleweight champion anymore, but he was one of the greatest middleweights ever.
Yeah.
So to have a record like that and to be with him through? Was it from the entire journey? All three.
I wasn't with him for the entire journey. So when he kind of came onto the scene, he was just like from Christchurch. You know, he was like this little like up and coming guy. He his first kind of like claim to fame. He fought the reigning champion of King in the Ring, the 2016 champion, and he dropped him with an overhand in the first round, and that was just like, what? This guy's like the man, you know. Alexi's such a strong chin. Nikora came out and just dropped him in the first round, but then that guy came back and dropped him twice with knees to the body, and then he finished the fight, but like he got smashed, you know, because that guy just built as the fight went on, and yeah. But then he actually couldn't continue because he was so badly concussed from that right hand. So
is that
was his first
Alexi?
Alexi.
Oh, so Alexi had to drop out because of the first right hand.
Yeah, he had to pull out of the tournament, and then Nikora didn't go on because he was too smashed and he was already like drinking and shit. So they have a reserve fight, so that guy stepped in, and then but then the second time that he went back, he won it. Then next time he won it again, and all this time like I was in Thailand, right? Then I came back. I started working with a lot of fighters here. They were all doing really, really well. And then his coach and I, we were like talking a lot because I just like to network with coaches. You know, I want them to feel like, hey, like I see what you're doing and like I rate it, bro. You know, and I'm like, I'm here if you ever want to like talk or anything. You know, talk shop. And so his coach, when he closed up shop, and also Nikora was wanting to transition into like MMA and stuff and move up to Auckland. His coach just messaged me and he goes, hey, bro, Nikora's coming to Auckland. Yeah, like, would you be able to work with him? I've told him specifically that I wanted to train with you. And yeah, sure enough, he came up. And I was like, looking at this kid like, fuck's sake, man, you're like skinny as hell. Like, he was all malnourished and that. Because he was just like kind of grinding his way up here, you know? It's tough when you get up here and you haven't really got works established and shit. I'm like, bro, how the hell did this guy like win King of the Ring twice, you know? But then from there, we fought like this junior Aussie champ. He knocked that guy out. He fought like the guy that he fought in the finals of the last King of the Ring, and he like put on a really good dominant performance against him. He dropped him in the first round, and then he like controlled the rest of the fight. And then from there, he went on and he fought in King of the Ring, which I think maybe you watched that or you might
I missed it, unfortunately. I wanted to be there. But I heard he had he won the way that no one wants to win King of the Ring, which is 3 hard fights in a row.
3 grueling fights. Yeah, he fought like some absolute killers, man. Like, it was literally killer's row. But yeah, there was this one fight in particular in King of the Ring where he fought Alejandro and Talesh, and Alejandro dropped him in the first 10 seconds of that fight, and then he went down. He immediately got back up because he was discombobulated as shit, man. His legs were all like all over the show, but luckily the ref let him continue. He survived that round, started to come back at the end of it, and then round 3 he actually stopped Alejandro. Like, he finished him. Yeah. And it was just like, bro, at that point in time my voice was gone. The whole crowd was just like going crazy, bro. It was the most magical moment. And then that particular moment, Israel Adesanya, he like recorded it and he goes, this fight inspired me. And because of that fight, he flew Nikora to Miami for him when he rematched Alex.
Oh, wow.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. And then he went on to win the finals. This is the kind of athlete that he is, the tenacity that he has. It's like there's 10 seconds left in the round. He dropped the guy in the first round, but the guy came back pretty strong. It's like 10 seconds left in the final round. Could it go to an extension round? Maybe. It might do. But in the last, like, maybe even 5 seconds, he throws a spinning back heel kick. The guy drops. The 8 count begins. He puts his hands up, and you hear ding, 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 and the fight's over. And when you finish a round like that, the finals of, like, this tournament, like the championship round, you finish a guy, like, just dropping spinning heel kick. He drops to the ground. He crumbles. He's 8 counted. Your hands are up. Yeah, you know. It's like there's no shadow of a doubt who won this fight, right? You know, so little moments like that, I'm like, fuck, that was insane, you know? Yeah, and that would be like, for me, like the highest high, right? And it's also, it's tough, bro, when you're coming in to work with an athlete that's already won King of the Ring twice, right? And now he started training with you, and there's like big shoes to fill, right? Yeah. You know, it's almost like mentally more challenging, but I know I had like unwavering like belief in him, you know? Yeah, he's just got that like absolute dog in him, man. Yeah.
So because you've worked with him and he's a champion and you work with other elite athletes as well, is there a kind of a difference that you can notice in the way that he trains and his mindset and stuff like that that sets him above everyone else?
Yeah, definitely, bro. So like when you work with like a lot of general population people and you work with elite level athletes, one of the biggest things I see just in general I'll go more specifically on Nikora, but just in general is, so first and foremost, it's their ability to grasp like concepts, like skills and concepts. So if I teach someone that's a high-level athlete specific skill, they'll pick it up very, very quickly. Like they'll get it like almost within like 2 sessions, they'll have almost mastered it, and then we just see this very like rapid rate of growth and development from that skill set. So yeah, that's something that I really noticed. I think they're just very, very fast learners. They're super good movers, and it makes sense because they're doing so much shit, right? Throughout the week, so much like movement variability that when you plug them into something, it's like the movement pattern in their brain is, they've got what's called like good kind of like kinesthetic awareness. So their proprioceptive awareness, their body's awareness of themselves moving through space is super high compared to someone that maybe just sits in front of a desk, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is like they're naturally quite competitive. Like if you tell them, hey, this person did this, that you fucking know sure as hell they're going to try and beat that person's score, right? So, you have to be careful with that because obviously you don't want to let their ego run too far to the point that their technique turns to shit just so that they can try to beat someone else, right? But yeah, that's something in particular. With Nikora in specific, the thing that I've noticed most about him is like the first time I give him something, it will look shit. It'll look really shit. And he'll just do it super slow and it'll look all ugly and that. The second time he does it, it's like he's thought about it the entire week and he's just like an absolute master of it. And you think to yourself, okay, he's mastered the skill. That's great. We're kind of like at the peak of this. No, that's not the peak. The next week he'll come back. He'll do it faster. He'll do it more effectively. He'll find a way to make it even better. The third week he comes back and it's like, let's say he's throwing a fucking ball at the wall. It's like, you thought, oh, that was already really good. The sound's already higher than everyone else. No, the sound's like a gunshot. Then after that, it's like a fucking bazooka. And everyone's just like stopping and staring at this guy, just throwing a ball at the wall, And he just like keeps pushing that barrier, bro. Like if there's like a ceiling, he's going to find a way to just burst through it and take things to another level. So I think that's something that I found like very, very interesting about him. It's like, even at the beginning, he doesn't get it 100%. He'll rapidly improve. And then he won't just improve, he'll just continuously, he's just like this like unstoppable force just going upward. And you're like, damn, okay, let's take that energy, put that somewhere else now because, we don't need to go that high on this one thing, But yeah, so that's something, bro.
Do you think he's actively pushing himself for that, or is it just something that he does?
Bro, that's a good question, bro. I think it's like just like innately like built inside him. I think, yeah, it's just who he is as a person, his core being. He just can't handle not being able to do something well, and he just, yeah, it's like, I guess that's why his name The Natural, because he is quite natural with things, but then he just has this like driving force to like just get better at it,
So we've talked a lot about Nikora Lee Kingi and athletes.
Yeah.
If we get into the basics of strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
As someone who, I'm quite new to the combat sports scene, so what's the difference between, strength is kind of self-explanatory, but what's the difference between conditioning and fitness?
Right, okay, good question, bro. So fitness is like quite a general term that's used to kind of be like all-encompassing. You could refer to fitness as like your strength, your cardiovascular health, like just your overall kind of like well-being. Yeah, so fitness as a whole is kind of like more of like a generic term that we use to kind of summarize someone's capability or like capacity to do a specific task, okay? And that could just be like anything, right? So fitness is quite a bit more of a broad term. When it comes to conditioning, we're then looking more at like the athlete's ability to do a specific job. So it's a very key indicator. So it's a very key concept. So conditioning is kind of like how much work you can do over a specific time period, right? So conditioning for an MMA fighter would be like, how much can they do within a 5-minute round and over like a 3-5-minute round fight, right? So conditioning, actually, when we look at it in its core, if we're looking a little bit more scientifically these days, we're looking at it from 3 different components. So we have what's called utilization. So basically utilization limitation would imply that your muscles are so detrained that although your heart and your lungs are feeding it lots of oxygenated blood, your muscles, they're so weak they can't actually utilize that oxygen fast enough to produce power or produce energy. So that's one limitation. The second one is pulmonary, which is like your lungs can't actually attach oxygen into your blood fast enough and expel CO2 effectively enough. So that's what's called a delivery limitation. So it's like you're not able to, like, your muscles might be great, they're burning through all this oxygen, but your lungs can't actually attach oxygenated blood or oxygen into the bloodstream to then send to the working muscles fast enough for them to actually use it. So they're burning through so much oxygen, but there's just nothing there, right? So then it just gets saturated with CO2, and then the muscle starts to fatigue out. And then the last one is cardiac, which is like your heart. So, the lungs can be doing their job great, but then if the heart's not actually able to pump blood, oxygenated blood to the working muscles, well, it's the same thing. That's also a delivery limitation, right? So when we look at conditioning, those are like the three kind of like core things that we look at, right? So someone, for example, could come to me and they're like super weak, physically they're weak, but they never get tired, right? They've just got this amazing gas tank. And you're like, well, you've obviously not got a delivery limitation. Your heart, your lungs, your recovery, everything's freaking amazing, but you can't even use that surplus of oxygen you have in your muscles fast enough to even warrant it being like an efficient means of training, So someone like that, they need to do more strength training. They need to do more power-oriented training to train their muscle fibers to actually burn through that oxygen faster. And even then, they're probably still not going to be enough. They're still going to have like this excess of oxygen, right? So that's kind of like how it works. The flip side would be like, you got someone like Conor McGregor, where from a utilization perspective, his muscles are fucking insane. They're so fast twitch, right? They're so powerful. He can produce so much force, but then like on the delivery end of things, it's like he's burning through so much fuel that his heart and lungs, they just can't actually supply him with enough oxygen for him to like keep going, And so that's why you see him kind of fatigue off in those like later rounds of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's like kind of our conditioning in a nutshell, bro.
And do they need to be targeted individually when you're creating a program, or is there a lot of overlap?
Yeah, that's a good question, bro. So a lot of the time we're going to look at the athlete, we're going to look at like how they perform on like specific, like challenges, specific like testing, and then we see like, okay, this person's like super explosive, they're super fast twitch, they're definitely going to need to like double down on like the delivery side of things, right? And then if someone else is like super weak, we put them through a whole lot of tests. They can't jump very far. In terms of like how far they can throw a ball, it's not very good. All these sort of things, we're like, okay, this person needs to get a lot stronger. So we're not going to worry too much on the conditioning side of things. Just like keep doing what you're doing. We're going to double down on the strength side of things to help them like develop on that front. Yeah, strength and power.
Yeah, and then so power is through plyometrics, right?
Yeah, so we do like plyometrics. We do so this is the thing, right? So even if we're building power, if we're wanting to build power, we'd also build that by building like a deeper foundation of strength. So strength is just like the force component in the equation, right? We also need to have the velocity side of things, and that's where like plyometrics and ballistics comes in. So you can have all the like strength in the world, but if you can't actually use it fast enough, it's called the rate of force production. If you can't actually use that force fast enough, then you're not going to be powerful, right? Like you'll be strong and your hits will be heavy, but they won't be like fast and explosive, right? So we need to like find that like sweet middle ground. Like, and the other thing too, I'll just kind of double down on that a little bit. So on the strength side of things, so a lot of like elite level like sprinters and athletes that are involved in power sports, they will use a lot of very heavy lifting. And I'm talking like 1 to 3 reps, but like maximally loaded. And the reason why is because even if they're lifting this weight, and sure, the weight's moving slow, but in order for that weight to actually move, their body has to recruit all their damn muscle fibers. Like they can't just use like slow twitch muscle fibers and expect that weight to move. This is like maximal strength, right? So their fast twitch type 2A and 2B muscle fibers are going to be like getting loaded like crazy, man.
And is it just me, but I've noticed in a lot of the videos that S&C coaches have been posting recently, there's been a focus on mobility and range of motion.
Yep.
And is that something that's just recently kind of become more important and people have realized that, hey, we need this? Or is it just hasn't been seen and it's been publicized now?
Yeah, so mobility's been this thing that's been around for like a very long time in like the strength and conditioning world. And there's been like lots of different parties, bro. Like, so there'll be like one team of coaches. So it was really interesting for me to break it down for you a little bit, bro. When I was in Thailand, the first gym I worked at, the lab, all the coaches there were like obsessed with mobility. They're all about like movement, multiplane movement, and mobility. The second gym that I moved to had a lot of like really, really top level coaches too, and they were just obsessed with strength training. And they were like, you don't need to do mobility work. you can actually just do strength training and your body will get more mobile as long as you're training through a full range of motion. And they've done all these tests on all their clients. They've done quite a lot of they've got a lot of data to pull on, and they basically found that like if they just train strength, all their clients reported to actually feel a lot less stiff. They didn't feel so tight. They just loaded them through like full ranges of motion, right? So you could say that it's still kind of like mobility training, but the difference is that this side of the camp would actually put a lot of time. They really doubled down onto the mobility side of things. I think mobility in general is a good means of kind of like maintaining your body, making sure like, so the way that I use mobility, bro, is I use it as like a chicken. So every now and again, I'll say like, okay, we're going to do a mobility session. And what we're going to look at is just to see, do you have like good optimal mobility through specific ranges of motion? So for example, the thoracic spine, if we isolate the hips and the pelvis and the core, like can you actually like effectively rotate through your thoracic spine? So that's like a really, really good thing to check. Another thing would be like, do you have like true like hip extension? Like are your hips like so jammed up, so stiff and tight from all the like hip flexion work that you've been doing? So I just use it as like a chicken, and this kind of gives me like good information about how much load's actually been going through their body. To answer your question though, is it like a thing that's like, you know, it's kind of trending at the moment, bro. It looks cool. It's like, you know, different. It's not just like a boring person doing like a bench or like a back squat, you know, it's got like a different kind of like thing to it, you know, like you're like, oh, mobility, wow, what's that, you know? So I think a lot of the time it is a little bit like on the like maybe gimmicky side, and I feel like a lot of people do put like they put too much emphasis on it, when I feel like there's not, like, let's say for example, every week you've got 2 1-hour sessions with your athlete. If you're spending like 30 minutes doing mobility, that's a waste of time, you know, because that whole 30 minutes could be spent actually just loading them up and just getting them stronger. The mobility component should be a very small percentage of the actual total workout, but people will spend like hours on mobility. Like there's a lot of mobility coaches that I see working in the gyms that I've been at, and bro, sometimes I'll just spend like an hour on like one damn hip, just like getting them to like get this kind of like arbitrary range of motion that they're never even going to use when they compete or do anything in life, you know? It's like they're on the ground and they're like trying to get their leg like up here, and it's like, okay, that's a great party trick, but when you actually stand up, your hip's not going to be like that. Your foot's going to be flat on the ground. So there's like a lot of these things that like they look cool, but it's like the carryover is not really that good.
So from the 2 training camps, the one with mobility and the one that was strength through mobility.
Yeah, the 2 different gyms.
Do you subscribe to the second one a lot more now then?
I subscribe to the second one a lot more. So my mindset is like, my mantra is like this, bro. It's like mobility, stability, strength. That falls back to this like educational provider that I've worked with a lot called Pre-Script. So Pre-Script, they were kind of like the pioneers of that. Mobility, stability, strength. So they're basically like mobility in the sense that you need the range of motion to be able to load the tissue. Once you've got that range of motion, you then need to have the stability to be able to like neurologically be aware of what's actually going on there. So a good example would be like a yogi. You know, they can lift their leg up, put it fucking around the back of their head and shit, right? But if you get them to stand up and you say, okay, like lift your leg up there, they can't actually do it. They can't just lift their leg up and like put it above their head, right? Whereas like maybe a gymnast can. They have that like awareness of their body moving through space, and they can actually like lift their leg up and go into these like deeper ranges of motion, right? But then on the flip side of that, we wouldn't want to be like all jammed up and stiff like a bodybuilder, right? So it's like this inverted bell curve. We're trying to like just come and like meet in the middle here, right? We don't want to be like too stiff, too like jacked up and like focused on strength and hypertrophy, but we also don't want to be too passively stretching our body out to the point that we're just like down regulating all the muscle tissue, and we're actually probably putting ourselves at more risk of injury.
So if strength and conditioning are components that make up a full picture of a combat sports athlete's skill set, how do they kind of fit into the full picture, including the skills of the actual fighting ability? And where would the importance of priority be?
Yeah, so strength and conditioning is always going to be like second priority to the skills training. So like if you're not skillful, you can be the most like fucking athletic person in the world, but it doesn't mean shit because you're still going to get beat up, right? So there was a good example of this actually. I think it was Nate's fight. The guy he fought athletically was a lot better than him. He was more explosive. He was very fit. He was super conditioned, but he just didn't have the skill. Nate had so much more skill than him. He just picked him apart, smashed him with kicks, like cleaned him up with feints, just like kept tagging him heaps. That guy was very athletic. He was super strong, but even when he would come to take him down, Nate just stayed calm, just like stumped the takedown, turned him off, back, boom, body kick, boom, straight left, just controlled him, man, you know?
Yeah.
So like that guy was like probably like quite significantly more athletically superior than Nate, but Nate was so experienced and so much more skilled, he was able to just easily handle him, you know? He just controlled him the whole fight and won like very comfortably on points. So that's like a good example. It's like you can be an absolute beast, you can do all the like strength and conditioning in the world, but if you're not actually building your skill, well then it doesn't even matter, you know? So yeah, to answer the question, strength and conditioning is like secondary to your skills work. Where does it fit into the equation? Normally, like with all the top level athletes, we want them to do at least 2 sessions a week of strength training. 3 is kind of like optimal, but if that means that they're missing on a skill session to put in that extra third S&C, well then the S&C is going to get deleted and the skill session is going to take priority, right? So yeah, it's just that fine tuning, that balance. So 2 is optimal. And then we also want to have, like in terms of conditioning, we want to have like our sports specific conditioning. So the stuff that we just get from showing up to the gym and like hitting pads, for example, or sparring and things like that, right? It's like sports specific conditioning. And then we have like our general conditioning, which we'd normally want to have around about like 2 to 3 sessions. They're normally only around about like 30, 40 minutes in duration. They're not like too taxing on the athlete. So most of the time when they're doing their like actual like going live, like wrestling or sparring or something like that, their heart rate's going to be like redlining most of the time, you know? So we want to have other means of conditioning that's not seeing their heart rate to like Valhalla and just kind of keeping them in a more kind of, you know, sub-maximal zone.
And then where does breathing come into that?
Breathing, yeah, that's a good question, bro. So breathing is very like nervous system oriented. So we have parasympathetic and we have sympathetic, right? So parasympathetic is like resting, relaxing, restoration, you know, just eating, sleeping, this kind of thing, right? Whereas sympathetic is fight or flight. So breathing is a very important tool for athletes to use to be able to manipulate and control the nervous system, right? So a really good example is this, is like if you're able to control your breathing, well, you'll see your heart rate dramatically drop in between rounds. So let's say you're a jiu-jitsu athlete, you're going hard, you do this intense roll for like 5 minutes. In that 1 minute, if you're able to like actually effectively breathe, so we have like diaphragmatic breathing where we breathe in through our nose and we like fully expand our belly and we breathe out. This type of breathing, we wouldn't do that in a fight because if someone hits our stomach, we're fucked, right? We're like TKO'd there. So we wouldn't do that in a fight, but in between rounds, we can implement that. And what we see is when people actually know how to breathe diaphragmatically, it just drops their heart rate like crazy, man. You know, so having that as a tool is super imperative because you think about this. Let's say you're doing a 3-round match. The first round, athlete A, when they're resting, they're just like this. Their heart rate just stays like fucking high, right? The other athlete just goes, and their heart rate goes boom. When they go into that second round, this guy is like almost like 3 minutes deep like he was in the first round, whereas this guy is like starting fresh from the first minute that he just started in round 1. And as the fight goes on, that just kind of compounds, right? And all of a sudden, this guy's just like, his heart rate's beating out of control. It's pumping excessively fast. It's just stressful, you know. His muscles are just like overloaded. His nervous system's overloaded, right? He can barely even think. He's running out of air. Whereas like the other guy, his heart rate's just like boom, boom, boom. His body's not like fucking panicking or anything. He's like fresh going into that next round. Yeah, so the fittest people that I train, they can pretty much like redline their heart, and within 30 seconds, their heart rate will be down into like the gray zone, you know, like sub 100.
That's hard to fathom. Like,
yeah,
especially because I've tried it after a run, and it's just like I can't breathe normally. Like right. I'm not getting enough oxygen.
Yeah.
Is that something that you kind of comes with the training, and you just got to force through, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, bro.
Yeah.
So like normally, like okay, so for example, when I work with in Thailand, I work with quite a lot of triathletes and like endurance, like ultra endurance athletes. You put them through any type of like semi-high intensity cardiovascular based training, bro, within like 20, 30 seconds, their heart rate's just like, boom, like plummeting down. Like you literally just see it go push towards the ground. There was this one Thai guy that we work with in Thailand. His name was Manachai, and he would be on the pads. He would be redlining his heart like fucking insane, bro. Like just like finishing off the round with like 20 power kicks on each leg, right? Within 30 seconds, he'd be at like 87, 90. And it's like, what? That's fucking insane. You know, a person that has that level of conditioning has such a like advantage over his opponent, right? And that's something that we see with like Dustin Poirier. You know, he finishes a round, he's fucking like just been in this intense firefight. Comes in the next round, he's like fresh. He's barely hard, like heavy breathing, you know? He's talking to his corner all chill and normal. You know, his heart rate's able to just drop back down to like baseline so fast, you know? So this is called cardiac agility. Mm-hmm. It's like your ability to like control your heart rate like that. So yeah, that's just like a general sign of someone being like at an elite level of fitness, you know, and conditioning. And
depending on the combat sport, do you need to tailor the strength and conditioning to suit? And I guess, well, you specialize in Muay Thai, but using Nikora as an example again, he's been a kickboxing fighter in the past, and now it's an all aspects MMA fighter. Yeah. Has there had to be much change and altering in the programs? Yeah, so the thing with City Kickboxing is that they already have like pre-established conditioning protocol that they all follow. So they just do their own conditioning work. But like generally speaking, their conditioning is already tapered towards MMA. But it's all they have like a specific type of training. So it's basically two parts of work and one part of rest. So you know, for example, it could be like 3 minutes of you know, high intensity training and then like 90 seconds of rest, right? So this 2-to-1 work to rest ratio, this has been shown to help improve repeated sprint ability. So that's like your ability to like explode, recover, right? So like most good gyms nowadays will implement something around this. But then they also have like a bunch of other like conditioning like protocols that they follow as well. So yeah, like in terms of him, he's already got like quite a good conditioning routine that he has like pre-established. Like it's pretty good, you know. Like if it was up to me, I'd want to change things, but you know, it's okay, right? Like he does what he does, and like he doesn't gas out. So it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? You know, he's already doing great. His conditioning's fine. We don't need to change a thing. Yeah. And when you're working with these athletes, you have to work quite closely with the gym that they're training out of and their head coaches as a part of their team? Yeah, that's a good question too. So the good coaches, they will be in like direct communication with me about the athlete and stuff. And they're the ones that you know are like, often a lot of times though, it's like the slightly smaller gyms and their coaches have a lot more like freedom in terms of like time and stuff like that. The bigger gyms is a bit difficult, right? Because they're balancing so many fighters. So it's like harder for them to like, you know, take the time out of their day to like ask me like, how was the strength and conditioning session? You know what I mean? And that's not like high up on their priority. So there's like a trust factor there. They just kind of like trust that I'm going to do my job and they're going to do their job, you know? But like in terms of communication, generally speaking, I'm very good at communicating with my athletes. Like, especially if they're in camp, I'll be asking them weekly, hey, how's your body? How was sparring? Have you got any footage you can send through? I'll get them to send me like videos of them sparring just so I can see them in real time, like how they're performing. And then I can look at like ways that, okay, we can potentially help them. You know, one thing that one of my mentors said to me, which really stuck with me, is like a good coach leaves like breadcrumbs for the athlete to follow. So, you know, you want to look at movement patterns that your athlete likes to do. And, you know, they implement a lot when they're actually going live and when they're fighting. And then it's like, okay, well, how can we like train the attributes and train the muscles that are responsible for that particular movement pattern? And then we want to just double down on that because obviously that's what resonates with them. They're fucking good at it. Well, let's just like leave the breadcrumbs for them to follow. They get into the ring. They think, oh, I've done all this like skills work, but it's also been kind of tied over into like the strength and conditioning round too. And everything just kind of like is automated at that point, you know? Yeah. That sounds like it's a very specific skill that you have to develop. Yeah. You watch tape, you look at the fighter and you're like, okay, cool. These are the attributes that he's using. This is what he's doing a lot in his fights. Fuck, most of his knockouts come from this specific technique. It's like, well, what are the attributes? What are the muscles that are responsible for making that technique more powerful and more damaging? It's like, cool, we're just going to train those. I was more meaning like the psychological side of trying to get the athlete to feel like they're doing it, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
That
yeah. Okay, I
sounds
get
like
what you're saying, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good example would be like King of the Ring, bro. Like Nikora, he just spammed through like flying knees. It's like it was literally like watching like a fucking video game where you're like going X circle, X circle, X circle, and X circle was like a flying knee. And I feel like Nikora was just going brr, 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 and like we did a shit ton of single leg box jumps, like really high box jumps, and we'd just be doing them heaps and heaps throughout our training. And he actually like injured his foot, like in his first fight. He kicked this dude straight into the elbow. So it was a super sore kick, right? And his leg was really badly damaged. So he couldn't really throw his right kick, but he had to use something to close the distance. So he was just going flying knee, flying knee, flying knee. And he wouldn't even like really land it most of the time. It would just kind of come up and go, they'll go, oh shit, you know? But he was so explosive, and that attribute was just so like finely wired into his brain that like when he was in the ring, he didn't even have to think about it. It was just an option that was there for him to take, and his body just like automatically took it, you know?
Yeah.
So little things like that, bro.
And I've actually lost track of time.
That's all right, bro.
But your social media is impeccable.
Oh,
You run it
thanks, man.
yourself?
Yes,
like
yes.
The detail you go into your posts, and it's like, I feel like I should be paying for this kind of advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much kind of effort have you put into growing your social media, and does it contribute quite a bit to growing as a business and getting clients and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely, bro. So, like, social media is something that was like really like drilled into me when I was in Thailand. All the gyms over there, like all the owners of the gyms, they just have a deep understanding about how powerful social media is in terms of getting your brand out there, and obviously getting at the time the gym's brand out there too. So they would like really educate us about what to do and things like that, and like help us with like niching and all this sort of stuff. But something that I've seen as like a recurring theme over the years is that the people that I was willing to purchase stuff from and learn from and want to like support and like learn more from, they were the ones that were just constantly giving out content that I felt like what you just said that I should be paying for. You know, I'll be like learning from these guys and I'm like, bro, like this is too much, man. Like you're giving away too much, you know? But then at the end of the day, it's like they're giving away so much, but then you're like, but they still have so much more knowledge. And you're like, fuck, if they're giving away this for free, how much more do they have that you're like, fuck, like what else is there, you know? What other hidden gems are there, you know?
Yeah.
So like those people, man, I would just be like, fuck, I'm just gonna, like learn from you guys. And then, yeah, I think that's just, it's an abundance mindset, bro. You know, you don't want to have a scarcity mindset. You want to just like say stuff that you know is going to help a lot of people, and like ultimately it will come back to you. You know, the coaches that I see that are like not willing to give away specific pieces of information and knowledge, they don't last long, man. And they're not like super successful either. So yeah, social media is such an important part of coaches in terms of business, because you're just putting yourself out there in front of like heaps and heaps of people, you know, and like you might put something out and like changes someone's life. And they're like, fuck, thanks so much for that. But then, you know, maybe in a few months' time, they're like, oh, I've got like this bonus paycheck at work. Fuck, I really benefited from that information Steve gave me. I'm actually going to head him up to do some sessions with him, you know? So, yeah.
We can't not give your Instagram a plug now if you want to shut down the camera.
At Steve Pipe Fitness, baby. Instagram. Let's go.
Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I've got so much more, so we're going to have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, all good, bro.
Yeah.
No worries, man.
Sweet. All right,
brother.
Cheers,
My
Steve,
guy.
and I'll see you next
Beautiful. That's us, man.
time. Sorry.
Yeah, she's just like right in there. Little shit.